Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. I'm Dave Griffiths. Glad to have you here. Matt Adams, our producer, is joining us. Mike Chappell on the injured reserve list this early in the season, but he will return strong and better than ever next week is the plan. But optimism after week one. Wow. That's all I have to say from what happened. Such a departure from what Colts fans have seen in recent years, and It's fun to talk about a winning team, Matt. So you and Chap get the old 1-0 on your list, on your predictions. I'll take the 0-1 because it gives us something fun to talk about right now.
Absolutely. I mean, there is not a considerable part of me still stunned by what I saw on Sunday. Now, I recognize that Miami Dolphins team probably not a very good team, and we'll find that out in a few weeks. But still, the Colts came out, did things that I just did not expect that they were going to be able to do on offense. And then defensively, we knew that we would see a much different looking defense from what we saw from Gus Bradley and really Matt Eberflus in the last few years. And shifting fronts, 8 guys at the line of scrimmage, who's coming, who's going, who's staying. I mean, just really some unexpectedly positive things, I think, for a lot of Colts fans.
I think two things can both be true. One, like you said, the Miami Dolphins are not a very good team right now. Like first of all, they have way too many good players to be as bad as they were.
It really
on that
is.
Field. So
there's a lot of talent out there.
When that happens, that is usually in the I'm not there. I'm not talking to players. I'm not talking to coaches. So take this with an extraordinarily large grain of salt. But usually it is problems with leadership at the top, and whether that comes from GM to head coach to quarterback, like it's something in that realm that is wrong with the team and needs to be fixed in some dramatic way when you have a lot of talented players and things are not clicking on the field. I'm not necessarily saying somebody has to go, but I am saying they need something different in that organization right now in order to best exemplify the talents they have. But that's one thing that could be true. The Dolphins are a bad football team right now. And we saw a lot from the Colts that is positive and that is unexpected perhaps, and that is encouraging for the rest of the season, because they might be the Dolphins a bad football team, but the Colts still have to go out and take advantage, and they did. To go out and have every single drive on offense be a scoring drive, something we have not seen in the Super Bowl era ever, any quarterback against any team. Like, good quarterbacks have played bad teams before. None of them had ever done what we saw on this field in the Super Bowl era, that every single drive gets points at the end of the day, even though Rigo did technically punt once. That was just wiped out.
It didn't count, right? Because they wiped it out with the penalty.
It was funny. I went up to Rigo literally today in the locker room. I said, dude, that was an awesome punt, because it was like inside the 10.
Yeah, it was a great punt.
He knocked it out. He's like, yep, anything for the team, though, because he was able to draw that penalty. So we had a good laugh about that in the locker room today. But I think both of those are true. Like, you saw good things from the Colts, and also you saw really bad things from the Dolphins. And over the next 2 or 3 weeks, really over the first quarter of the season, it takes, I think, to really get a good idea about what teams in the NFL are. You'll get to see which way the pendulum is tipping in that area. But at least right now, I think the biggest thing, Matt, about a win in week 1 this year is, it snaps the streak that they had.
Thank goodness, right?
Back to 2013. Thank God I don't have to ask that anymore.
Don't have to update my article for next year.
Exactly. So we'll just stick with Jacksonville for this year. Hopefully not. But that is important. And number 2, a win over a team that was viewed as similar to you coming into the season. Like, I think that this win puts you in. This is so early in the season to say this, but this win at least gives you optimism, more optimism than it would otherwise for the playoffs. Like, you can always shrug off a week 1 loss and say, they can come back later.
Right.
If you're a fan of this, we can come back later, but to actually get a win in week 1, I think puts the Colts on a significantly better side of the coin when it comes to looking down the field in this season. And like we talked about our season predictions just last week on this show. And if you're right around there, 8-9, 9-8, every single win matters. And to be able to come out and make a statement week 1, show positives week 1 that you haven't done in the past, I think that this really does put them on the better side of being optimistic that the playoffs are a possibility, rather than just going into it like, well, here we go again. Here's another season that's going to be 5 in a row.
Especially a team like Miami that you kind of feel was on the same class as the Colts.
Right.
And they looked in a separate class from Miami in week 1. And I don't want to take anything away from the Colts, because it could very well also be that the reason the Dolphins looked so bad is because the Colts were able to have more talent and were able to execute their game plan this week. And just to go to show, I mean, obviously 2013 was last year that they won an opener, but I looked back. 2009 was the last time that they started out 2-0 in the season. Other than that, it's just been a lot of 1-1s, 0-2s. There was 0-3 the year that Wentz was quarterback. They started out 0-3. One year they did start out 0-13. We all know which season that was. But there's just kind of a handful of playoff appearances there when you just start out, 1-1, and so that makes the week 2 game to kind of build some momentum toward getting into the playoffs is really important this week, I think, in Denver.
And they were famously in 2018, they were 1-5 that year, 1-5. I know that one came early, and then they went 9-1 down the stretch in order to make the playoffs. Of course, that one loss, famously, 6-0 in Jacksonville to Cody Kessler when the offense was just clicking so much, and that's why we'll get to that eventually. We don't need to talk about that right now. Too many other great things.
We can save that for December.
Exactly, we will. Too many great things to talk about right now if you're a Colts fan, and I think that starts with the play of Daniel Jones. He was everything that Shane Steichen said that he was. Every reason that Shane Steichen gave to picking Daniel Jones as the starting quarterback instead of Anthony Richardson, Jones showed on the field in this first game. He found completions. He kept moving the chains. He got the team in the right position to make plays. Most famously in this game, in the fourth down conversion to Josh Downs on the short little out route, where he changed the protection up beforehand in order to slide it to the correct side and allow Downs to go out into the flat and catch an easy first down there. Like everything that Shane said was a reason why Daniel Jones was the starting quarterback. We got to see it in this game.
I did a recap podcast on Monday just to kind of talk about that, and like it was hard because we've not. I know you guys have been at practice, but I've not been, and then really all I saw was in the preseason, and Jones sort of got bum rushed in that first game because you had an injury.
It's hard to say anything.
It's hard to say anything out of the preseason anyway. The other game that he was in, he had a fumbled snap and he missed Warren on a throw and that sort of thing. But when you saw it in week 1, you saw the vision of kind of what Daniel Jones could be for this team. And he could still hit a 36-yard pass to Alec Pierce. It was a nice throw and a great catch from Pierce on there. But they still had 4 explosive plays in the passing game. And they went to Warren, they went to Mo Alley Cox, they went to Michael Pittman, and then the one that I mentioned to Pierce. And then they had, if you go through and you look through the game log or the play-by-play on the Colts, there's a lot of, 4 or 5 yard passes and such, but which is good because they weren't hitting those last season. But there are also those plays that aren't necessarily the definition of an explosive play of 20-plus yards. You've got an 18-yard one to Adonai Mitchell, and you've got a bunch of like 14, 15, 16-yard catches by Warren and Pitt. And so just doing the little things and then just being up at the line of scrimmage, seeing him just sort of gesticulate around. I know it's a dumb word, but a dumb thing to say, but just to see him around the offensive line, pointing out things, changing calls, varying his cadence. I mean, it came together really, really well on week 1. And again, can I say I'm a complete believer? I just need to see a little bit of consistency. But that is the hallmark of Daniel Jones, right? Is that he is consistent. So now is he going to do the same thing in week 1 that he did week 2? Is it going to be the same kind of impressive performance? We don't know. But hopefully they have found a way to minimize some of his flaws and so he can execute Shane Steichen's game plan. Because honestly, I was kind of thinking about it, with Anthony Richardson playing and then Gardner Minshew pressed into duty in 2023. We've not really seen Shane Steichen kind of be able to choose his quarterback and say, this is the guy I want running my offense in a sense. And this time he got to do it with the quarterback competition, and it finally made Steichen's offense finally looks, I think, like Steichen wants it to look.
If you let Daniel Jones average 9.4 yards per attempt, which is a stat you put together here, and when his career mark is 6.5, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I know that the notion of averages is that half of your games will be above it and half will be below it, but having a 3 yards per attempt average more than your career average is a significantly good game. And Daniel Jones obviously responded well to Shane Steichen in week 1. Now, like you said, does this make you a complete believer? Is this job Daniel Jones's in the future? None of those things are true right now, and we'll get to those eventually. But right now, it's like I've said, there's a lot for Colts fans to be excited about. And one thing that I did notice now, Matt, is since this game, no one has mentioned the name Anthony Richardson.
No, not much. It came up once, I think, in Monday's podcast.
And that's, I think, first of all, that's a good thing for the Colts because you don't have to worry about any arguments or back and forths or, hey, should we put Anthony in for some short yardage stuff? Would that perhaps bring a jolt? Like, that's no questions you want answered. So it's a good thing for the Colts, and it's a good thing for Richardson. Let him slide into the background a little bit right now and not have the spotlight on him and be able to grow that way. So that's all I really need to say about Richardson right now.
I will say,
because that's all there is to say about
I did get one comment from someone who said, it's pretty telling to me, and I don't think this is telling, but it's interesting to me that at the end of the game, when the Colts are clearly ahead, they pulled Jonathan Taylor from the game, they got DJ Giddens running the ball. They didn't even throw Richardson in there to hand things off when the game's out of hand. And I'm like, why would you do that anyway? Yeah. You're just doing handoffs at that point anyway.
That's usually not, like, NFL teams really don't do that. This isn't like college where you might get a backup in the fourth quarter.
Get a guy in, get him some time.
Yeah, like if you really play your starter, unless you're the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl and you're winning like 42-0 in the fourth quarter, then maybe you can pull your starters.
Right, or if it's a late season game or something like that.
That's just not a normal thing to do. So I'm not gonna get on board with that.
No.
Like, I understand people asking that for sure, but I would not get on board personally with that comment. What about the other side of the ball, Matt? Defense, 3 turnovers forced, kept Miami's offense very much in check. Miami only held the ball for 21 minutes in this game. The Colts had it for 38, nearly 39. It was a really good showing by the Colts defense, and Lou Anarumo had Tua Tagovailoa guessing on, it seems like, every drop back that he went. Like, this is very much opposite from what Colts fans are used to from the past couple of years.
Usually it's sit back and react, right?
And again, I'm not saying one way of doing defense is better than the other, because obviously there are very successful coordinators who do it both ways. But for the talent that the Colts have, this has obviously been a productive defense in week 1, and they have the talented players in order to do multiple things, like Nick Cross and Kenny Moore blitzing, like Latu dropping into coverage and picking the ball off, that they are able to be multiple and confuse quarterbacks and offensives that way. It looked like Tua didn't know what was coming, and it showed with his results on the field.
I was just so impressed with the different fronts they gave. They made a determined effort to just, like I said, they'll put 8 guys up at the line of scrimmage sometimes, and then it makes you guess. It gives you that extra split second, because Miami's entire offense is predicated on the quick read and the quick throw. And I saw a stat that, usually Tua's release is like 2.25 seconds or something like that usually. And against the Colts, it was in the 2.6 range, because they were kind of clogging up the passing lanes that he was looking for. It was taking him that extra split second to get the read, and that's good for your defensive backs, and that's also good for your pass rush.
Yeah, I actually just got a text from our video journalist out at Colts practice right now. Brett Bensley says Latu's not practicing today. So he was limited yesterday with a hamstring. And sometimes what that means is halfway through the practice, somebody gets hurt. But obviously we didn't talk to Shane Steichen today. We won't get more from him until Friday, which is tomorrow, as we tape this podcast on a Thursday. But Latu not practicing. I did see a red jersey inside Mooney Ward's locker. I don't know if he's out there, so I've just texted to see if he can see Mooney out there anywhere. But if he does indeed have a red jersey today, and even if he has one on Friday, there are ways that you can make it through to play in the game on Sunday. So
for those of you who may not have, he got in the concussion protocol.
Correct.
So he's got to pass a 5-step process. It starts with symptom, what they call symptom limited activity.
Right.
And then it's aerobics, and then it's football activity, and then it's a non-contact football practice, and then a full contact aerobics.
You have to go through a 1980s Christy Brinkley video in order to be able to get back to practice.
And then they're like, hey, the things are looking good here. We don't see any lingering concussion symptoms, so we're going to clear you from the protocol and you can play. So we'll just have to see if that's going to be in play for Ward this week.
How about Laiatu Latu though, getting an interception before a sack this year? That was a really nice play.
It was a very athletic play because that ball wasn't exactly right to him. He kind of had to shift and move, and I obviously don't think that Tua thought he was going to be where he was and never saw him. But no, it was a great play. And I thought that he really wanted to take that back all the way.
Oh, yeah. We had a funny moment with DeForest Buckner this week, chatting with him, because like the one stat that Buckner does not have in his career is an interception. Like he's got everything else. Like, obviously tackle, sacks, fumble recovery, fumble return for touchdown, safety, all that stuff. But he has not quite gotten an interception. He's been close a couple times, but like we joke with him, like he's 6'7" and 300 and huge.
How'd you not get your hands up?
If he drops back, quarterbacks have to see him. Like, I don't care if you're a high school quarterback. You're going to see DeForest Buckner back there. You're not going to throw it his way. So getting an interception, pretty tough for a guy like DeForest Buckner. But Laiatu Latu able to get one this past week. And just the latest example, like I said, of Lou Anarumo kind of shaking things up and doing things differently than we've seen here in Indianapolis in the past.
And really,
it was effective.
I heard somebody make a really good point on the radio the other day because you had Gus Bradley and you had Matt Eberflus before that. But even before that, going back to the Tony Dungy days, it was a cover 2 defense with, you're going to get your pressure from your front 4 guys. You're not going to see a lot of blitzing and that sort of thing. And we've kind of seen that for, 2 decades of Colts football because that's been kind of the defensive philosophy of guys that they've hired. And so it's just, I think, refreshing to see because you feel like when you're in those defenses, and especially with what we've seen the last few years from the Colts defense, you never felt like they dictated the terms of battle out there, right? That they're always reacting and we're going to let them get down to the 15-yard line, but then we're going to tighten up and we're going to stop them. And Bradley especially just I never thought utilize Kenny Moore to the best of his abilities. Eberflus did do a little bit of that. They used Kenny. They used him all kinds of different ways under that system. And so to see Anarumo give the different looks and use Nick Cross off the edge on a play, and you don't have to do it every play, but it's picking your spots, looking at where you think the weakness is going to be in that formation and sending them. And they did a really nice job of that. And the coverage, for the most part, sticky. They've used that word a lot in this offseason with Ward and some of their other guys that they really like. Sticky coverage, their guys were all over the Miami receivers.
And could be a test for them this coming week if Ward does not make it through concussion protocol. Because having that number 1 corner, like it trickles down, man. It does. And like he's not practicing today, right now on Thursday as we tape this podcast. So it's going to be a little bit of an uphill climb to get ready for a game on Sunday. The Broncos have some pretty good receivers out there. Cortland Sutton is one of the more underrated guys, I think, in the league. Like he's a big dude and can fight through physical coverage and make contested catches. But Mooney Ward, he had a quiet game 1. Like he's not out there making massive plays. Like Cam Biden, the addition, got the interception on the overthrown ball by Tua. But like most of the time, quiet days by your number 1 corner, Matt, are really good days for your number 1 corner.
Right?
Exactly.
You don't want to see him.
Yeah, and we really didn't see Mooney too much. I think we had like 1 completion that was short, maybe 2 completions against him. I don't know off the top of my head. I remember one of them, but he was what you wanted in your number 1 cornerback. Like you don't want Tyreek Hill catching a short pass and then going 80 yards, and you don't want Jalen Waddle catching 14 balls for 140 yards, just over and over and over again, whoever it might be. So Ward did his job in week 1, and that was an afterward instance of the concussion creeping in. So we're going to have to keep monitoring that over the next couple of days. You can follow us on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone. You can follow me personally at DaveG_sports. Mike Chappell is at MChappell51. Matt Adams is at Stadamatty. And we'll have those things coming up later in the week when we know some more for sure on that. Another Colts newcomer who had quite the game 1 was tight end Tyler Warren. After the first Colts drive, I thought he was going to catch 27 passes.
It felt like that, didn't it?
It was boom, 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 over and over again. 84, 84, 84. And the way that I look at this, I think that you look at the big 3 receivers for the Colts, it's going to be Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs. Yeah. If they have a pass-heavy attack at any time, 2 of those guys are going to have good days like they did yesterday. And one of them is probably going to be not so much. And that was Downs. Even though he caught the 4th down, one of the biggest plays of the game, he just only had 2 catches himself. But when it comes to like all 3 of them, it would be probably hard-pressed to have all 3 of them have a good day. And if Jonathan Taylor's on one, maybe only one of them has a good day, 6, 7 catches. But as it was yesterday, Tyler Warren had 7 catches for 76 yards on 9 targets. Michael Pittman had 6 catches, including the long touchdown.
He was the second most targeted receiver
Exactly.
to Pittman, which, again, you would expect that,
yes,
right?
But in this game in particular, Warren came and made a statement. And tight ends sometimes take some time to get used to the NFL. He looked used to the NFL. And he has, like, we've said this since he stepped foot on the fields in Westfield, like that we've really been able to watch him do significant football activity. Like, he has not looked like he's catching up at all. Like, he's there. And to come out and have 7 catches for 76 yards in game 1, made a nice 21-yard reception. Like, look good. Brian Baldinger does Baldy's breakdowns on Twitter. Like, he had a really good description of what he was able to accomplish as a blocker as well, and his awareness as a receiver to be able to catch the ball and kind of turn away from coverage as soon as he gets it.
Where he just kind of did this little spin and that got a bunch of yards after catch.
Exactly. Like, we've talked about Warren as a physical tight end, like a guy who's not afraid to mix it up and be a blocker, and that's absolutely true. But most of the time with those guys, like, they're the Mo Alley Cox type guys. Like, they'll just catch it and they'll turn around. That's not part of their game, is to really turn away from coverage after you catch a ball and gain 10 more yards. But Tyler Warren, man, that's part of his game too, and there should be nothing but good vibes for Colts fans when they think about Tyler Warren.
He got a little fullback belly carry.
How about that?
As well.
Still time to give him a couple passes here and there. So that could certainly be coming over the coming weeks. But as it is, Tyler Warren really optimism, I think, for him. And Pittman looked good. That was a really nice ball from Daniel Jones to find Pittman, like right on his fingertips. And like I think it was a Dan Orlovsky breakdown on Twitter of that play, kind of praising Pittman for what he's able to do. Because on that play, Pittman was supposed to get an outward release, and the corner just wasn't letting him have it, because I think Warren was on the inside trying to run a little post route or a skinny post, and so he needs to get outside to kind of make the safety, the cover 2 safety, decide where he wants to cover. And so Pittman was able to kind of fight through on the inside and then immediately break outside, get some space between him and Warren.
Got that over the shoulder
exactly.
catch. Because if you go and look at the route, he stumbles a little bit
very much so.
Coming out of that break to try to get through that contact. But the ball was there, and of course Pittman does have very, very good hands, and he made a nice fingertip, almost a little double clutch there on the catch.
I'll say this too. A.D. Mitchell had 2 really nice catches as well.
A.D. Mitchell, the first one really stood out to me. It was the sideline.
And that's one that he slipped too, coming out of his break.
Yes.
And that's one that last year, I don't know if he makes that play, because he does everything really well up until the very end, you know, and then he slips and then he doesn't make the catch. Well, he made this catch.
Yes, and it was again, this was another that was a borderline chunk play, because it was 18 yards, not the 20 that you would call an explosive.
Yeah, Tyler Warren also drew a pass interference, very much a pass interference in the end zone.
I looked at it a couple times. The first time, maybe I'm like, in fast motion, maybe not, but take another look at it. Yeah, certainly.
That's okay. It's week 1 for the officials too, and it's 33-8 at the end of the day. So,
absolutely.
No harm, no foul.
And we'll take it. I mean that's fine. And another thing I did want to mention about Jones, we didn't talk about. Able to make some plays with his legs. We saw him do some scrambling a couple of times, not a ton,
right?
Not a ton of design runs or anything like that, but able to make some plays, get some yards here and there. And then obviously the quarterback sneaks, big part of his repertoire.
Yeah.
And they put it to good use for Indy.
You look at the numbers, and Joel A. Erickson was talking about this in our media sessions today. He's the Indy Star Colts insider, one of them, or the only one right now since Nate Atkins left for Los Angeles. But anyway, Joel was talking about the short yardage situations. And the stat that he found was that statistically, Daniel Jones is the 3rd best quarterback on and 1 scenarios over the past X number of years, only trailing Jalen Hurts, who is the king of it with the tush push,
right?
And then Jacoby Brissett,
who was very good. I mean, if Colts fans remember, Jacoby was a very good quarterback sneak.
So Daniel Jones, and I found it notable that every time Jones went over the right guard, which is Gonzalez. He's not going over Quentin Nelson. You might think
left side, right? Because that's what we considered to be the strength of the Colts offense.
But he found something that's working there with if Gonzalez is maybe really good at it, at something, or because Braden Smith also plays a role in keeping the defensive end from crashing down and making a play too. So something was working on that side, and something's working.
Could also be a simple matter of their expectation is also everybody expects that they're going to go to the left side, and maybe you're able to find a little more room on the right that way too. So again, have to look at the X's and O's of that, but just really interesting. I thought again, able to make some plays with his legs, and that's a great thing to have, a great weapon to have when you're just outside the goal line.
We mentioned Charvarius Ward, Mooney Ward in concussion protocol. Jalen Jones is also injured. He re-injured his hamstring that had bothered him throughout the preseason, which is awful for Jalen and awful for the Colts, because if you have two corners that are down, like your number 1 and your number, I don't know, 4, you would think they're a 3-4 guy.
Think so,
Yeah, that's that just puts a strain on everyone else out there. So especially when all these guys that you brought in were recent additions, like Mekhi Blackman. You got him in a preseason trade. Jonathan Edwards was inactive in week 1. He could very much be active here in week 2. If one or both of Mooney Ward and Jalen Jones. Well, Jalen Jones definitely going to be out. He's going to be missed some time. And Shane Steichen said that injured reserve is not even
it's not
out,
off the table.
So.
They're just kind of going to wait and see on that.
Yep. So that might be a hot minute before we know how long he's out for. But Ward, obviously some more optimism. He could be back, but that's something that we'll monitor continuously. Let's see. We had game day practice squad, possible elevations like Chris Lamons, who's been on this team before, Keedron, Callaghan, safety Derek Forrest. There's guys there, but like at this point, they're guys, that are not really experienced guys. And they're going to have to come in and learn what's a more complicated system in Lou Anarumo's than you would if you're jumping in a Gus Bradley or system. So
I guess my thought is they'll probably not elevate, but they'll probably use Jonathan Edwards.
Yeah.
And if they do elevate somebody to play, probably be Lamons because he's got a little bit of experience. He played a considerable amount in the preseason for them. And then maybe if they elevate one of those other two guys, it might be for some special teams.
They have done this thing before as well. Like when in a situation like this, like they would elevate a guy like Lamons and play him over Jonathan Edwards, but you're keeping Edwards on your roster because you really like him as a developmental guy, and you don't want to put him on the practice squad.
Practice squad, and somebody's going to snatch him up.
So that's a possibility too. So we'll see what they decide to do with that come game day. You're watching the Colts Blue Zone Podcast on Fox 59 now. I do believe it is time to turn our attention forward to the Denver Broncos. Week 2, Broncos also 1-0 after a victory over the Tennessee Titans in Week 1, which was not exactly a pretty football game.
No, one of the things that was kind of nice about the football schedule, or at least the TV schedule, was that we were able to watch the Titans and Broncos game here in Central Indiana because that gives you a look at a divisional opponent, and then also conveniently gives you a look at that week's opponent.
Yes, wonderful. And you got to look at both of them, and the Colts certainly performed better than either of those two teams.
It was
in Week 1.
Ugly.
Yeah.
Game.
So, and then of course the question always becomes: Are these good teams that just crashed heads against each other?
Right.
Or like is the Titans? I think the Titans' defense is pretty good.
I think it's two good defenses.
Yeah, exactly.
That clashed in this. Well, they didn't clash against each other, but they showed. Both defenses played very well against offenses that I did expect the Broncos offense to be better than it was. With the Titans, you are dealing with Cam Ward, number 1 draft pick, and it just, as we all painfully are aware of, it takes guys some time to develop. And the Broncos have as dynamic of a defense as anybody out there.
Yes, they do, for sure. And to have Cam Ward go against them in Week 1, that's tough. And then he's going to go against Lou Anarumo in Week 3 coming up next week. And like Bo Nix went against a pretty good Titans defense, I think, in Week 1. He's going to go up against a pretty good Colts defense here in Week 2. And there are questions with Bo, like who is he going to be here in year 2? Like quarterbacks who enter year 2, Matt, you'll know as well as anybody that some of them are able to take a step forward in their careers. Like guys like Lamar Jackson was pretty good year 1, took a step forward in year 2. All of a sudden, he's an MVP candidate. Boom, just like that. There are other guys like Robert Griffin, if you look back far enough, that was NFL or NFC Offensive Player of the Rookie of the Year, and then really did take a step back before he even got hurt in his second year, and then beyond when he just couldn't match what he was before. I think those are two very dramatic examples of
even if you look
spectrum.
In recent history, C.J. Stroud had a fantastic rookie season, and it felt like a little bit of a sophomore slump there for Houston. I know that they won the division and all, but it was not a pretty look for them. And he was because they just can't figure out their offensive line, constantly harassed last year, and was not able, that rookie year was kind of able to rise above it. Last year, but not able to so much.
There are so many factors that determine whether a quarterback takes the next step or doesn't. So like I was asking some players today, like I asked Buckner and I asked Cam Bynum about it. Obviously not quarterbacks themselves, but they've seen a lot of quarterbacks in their careers, So, and it, to them, it was very simple. Like you have to study yourself in the offseason. You have to learn your tendencies. And then you have to disguise your tendencies. And that's true for any position. Like for Buckner, he talked about how he self-scouts every offseason and how he tries to learn if he has any tells for what he's going to do. And even in year, however many it is for him in the NFL now, it's coming on 10, I think. If not, it is at 10 already. He still does that every year. And you have to learn to do that. You have to learn to do it well in the NFL because coaches are too dang smart. Defensive coaches can watch, and there's so many of them watching too, that somebody's going to find something about your game. So you've got to find it as well. And you've got to be able to recognize what you're giving away with a certain cadence or a certain pre-snap ritual or a certain pre-snap look. And you've got to be able to disguise it better. And that, of course, comes down to your offensive coaches as well, scouting you and being able to help you along into year two. And honestly, Sean Payton's a really darn good coach, man. He's a great quarterback coach. And there are few people, I think, that could be better for Bo Nix to have alongside him trying to get better in year two. But it's ultimately going to be up to Nix and see how much effort he's put into the offseason. His first week wasn't great. That doesn't mean he had a terrible offseason or that he's going to be one of the guys who slumps, but it does mean that at least on notice now, let's see what you can do here in week two. Not that it's going to be too much easier against another defense that's probably going to be pretty challenging.
Well, the first thought I had was that, Denver won last year's game, but he still had 3 interceptions against the Colts. They
scored 31 points against them still.
And they scored 31 against the Colts last year. And then in their game against the Titans, Denver turned it over 4 times. Nix was responsible for 3 of those. He had 2 interceptions. He also lost a fumble. So, again, that's also the defense dictating the terms sometimes and maybe forcing a bad throw in those types of things. But if you can't take care of the ball, that's going to be a problem for you. And, the Colts, people didn't have a lot of film on the defense, and they've got the week 1 film, and that's about it. So they're still going to be able to kind of give Denver a lot of new looks and use guys differently, although it may be limited depending upon the cornerback health.
Yeah, their running game was kind of stuck in the mud until the fourth quarter. They did get a couple long runs there, and R.J. Harvey, J.K. Dobbins is kind of the two-headed monster they have in the backfield. And the Colts maybe do have some questions right now that weren't completely answered week 1 for the run game. Devon Achane, he averaged about 8 yards per carry against them.
He was effective when they were able to run.
But they just didn't run it that much because they were way behind and they were trying to catch up quicker. And maybe if they had stuck to the run longer, they would have gone better for them. But that's now it's neither here nor there. We're on to week 2. And the Colts, like I said, still maybe have some questions in the run game, if not alongside showing that they were pretty good in week 1 against the pass game. So they're going to face a young kid in Nix who is trying to take the next step in his career. Coach in Sean Payton, who's really good offensive mind. Some running backs who were able to break a couple long runs last year. Just a bevy of receiving targets. Nobody dynamic. Evan Ingram had a good game, I think, against the Colts last year when he was with the Jaguars, and has had a couple good games against them in the past. Well, he's now with the Broncos. He's the move that the Broncos made to this offseason to try to solidify something around Nix and take the next step for him. Like, hey, we're going to get you a better tight end.
We'll get you a good tight end.
Yeah, and the Colts did that by drafting Tyler Warren, of course, for their young quarterback or whatever
week
quarterback
1 so far.
Exactly is out there. You mentioned their defense. They have some incredibly talented players. Patrick Surtain is the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year, the second, of course. Has 11 career interceptions. He has 2 defensive touchdowns, and he has many more quiet days than he has busy days.
Yeah, kind of one of those guys, if you're a Denver fan, you don't want to hear his name called. Yep. You don't expect to have his name called.
And you usually don't. Right. Exactly. When his name is called, usually good things happen for Denver. So you don't hear called too often. Nick Bonito on the defensive line, really a linebacker, but he had 13.5 sacks last year. He had 1 sack against the Titans this past week. He was one of 6 different players to record a sack against the Titans. The Broncos had 6 sacks, each one from a different player. That's Vance Joseph. That's bringing it from different positions, from different players. They have a bevy of guys who can get after the quarterback, but Bonitto is number one in that group for sure.
He's gonna come and he's gonna get you.
So he's a all-pro talent. Zach Allen on the inside, 8.5 sacks last year. Another one who's a all-pro talent. Signed an extension in the offseason. Bonitto just signed an extension himself as well. So they locked up these guys for the long term. They held the Titans to less than 100 yards rushing. They only had 7 first downs. They were 2 of 14 on third down. So we can talk about Bo Nix until we're blue in the face. If the Colts don't get any yards against the Bronco defense, it doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly. If they needed to be better than they were last year, and they showed something against the Broncos last year. They had a halftime lead. Like, let's not completely throw the baby out with the bathwater when we talk about the disaster in Denver last year, which it was in the second half.
The Colts were dominating that football game up until a certain point.
Yes, they were not good in the second half, but they were very much in the game in the first half. And then the second half, Jonathan Taylor drops the ball. A.D. Mitchell throws to Bonitto, who goes the other way. The Broncos got a long punt return or kick return, one or the other. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a big special teams play that put them in great field position that allowed them to get another touchdown. And really, the game swung on 3 big plays in the second half by a team that stayed in it and was well coached with great players who made big plays.
And again, at that point, Nix was rookie quarterback.
Yep.
And he threw three interceptions in that game, but they were still able to overcome it because Colts mistakes, defense making great plays.
Yeah, and let me say this too. Like I brought up the special teams play last year. I think we can say right now the Colts special teams is a little bit of a concern in the return game because
I've seen
the Dolphins had a big return.
Yep.
And there was a couple of plays in the preseason as well. Like again, preseason, I don't want to make conclusions off of that.
Right. You might have guys that are playing positions that they're not really expected to play, that sort of thing.
But when it trickles into the regular season, then you start to realize, okay, that maybe was a telltale sign of things moving in the wrong direction. So I think Brian Mason has a little bit of work to do with the return game.
Yeah, and specifically the coverage.
Yes,
units.
Kick coverage units, and especially the kick coverage, but punt coverage too. And the Broncos, again, have one of the best in the league at that. Marvin Mims is another all-pro return guy last year. Who can break one at any time. So, and with how the NFL is right now, how more teams are now bringing out kicks and more teams are just trying to pin guys instead of automatically giving them the ball at the 35-yard line, they're going to have more opportunities to do so. So that's something like you need to fix it, and you need to fix it in a hurry because you're facing, again, one of the best teams in the league. It seems like that here in week 2.
Yeah, I meant to mention that on the special teams.
Son of a gun.
That it just feels like they're getting an extra 5 or 10 yards that they should not be getting, and almost breaking some of these kick returns. We didn't really see much from the punt return game this past week because it was a non-factor, but so hopefully that'll be better.
Yep.
And then from their specialist standpoint, I do think they're okay. Sanchez is a really good punter.
Yeah.
And Spencer Schrader hit all of his kicks on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's all good. They were not all, I think the longest was maybe 48. So it wasn't a tremendously challenging game for them, but still made the kicks supposed to make and not having a lot of drama on that's not a bad thing.
Make your layups.
Exactly.
As we have heard, it was said in this room.
It applies to quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
It applies to kickers.
Yep.
Just do the little things right, do the little things well, and that'll really help you in the long run.
An interesting stat from week 1's games. The Broncos were the only team in the NFL that won in spite of losing the turnover battle. So they had 4 turnovers themselves, 3 of them Bo Nix's fault, or at least 2 interceptions and a fumble. Right. Like Sean Payton has kind of taken some of the blame, saying he didn't call great plays. Bo has said, I can't be as aggressive as I was. So that's the back and forth then. That's what you expect of the quarterback to take onus.
You expect the quarterback to say that, and you expect the quarterback also.
Exactly. So where's the truth lie? Probably somewhere in the middle. But ultimately, as Bo said, he's the one with the ball, so he's the one who has to make the final decision. But anyway, they're the only team in the league that lost the turnover battle and still won the game. And they're able to do that for, I think, a couple reasons overall. Number one, the Titans had 13 penalties for 131 yards.
31 yards, man.
Yikes, man.
Looking at that box score, and it's one of those that you do the double take. It's like, did I see what I just saw? Yes, yes, you did.
Do you want to just damage the chances for your rookie quarterback then commit penalties, one after the other after
commit
the
a dozen
other.
penalties and just keep doing it.
Do you want to give chances to the young quarterback who's trying to find his footing on the other side of the ball? Well, then commit penalties against him and let him keep moving down the field. Give him that second opportunity to learn from a mistake and keep playing on the field instead of on the sideline. So I think that's a big reason why the Broncos were able to win. Another reason was the pressure on the quarterback. They're able to get their 6 sacks from lots of different places. They were confusing Cam Ward, as you would think that they would, a rookie quarterback going up against a Vance Joseph defense. Daniel Jones should play better. Like, just if you look at this experienced quarterback whose strength is being a cerebral guy and
should have seen, or you might fool him once or twice.
Of course.
You're going to.
He's not going to be perfect, I don't think. But and then against a rookie quarterback who's never seen any of these things before. Like, so I think that big things, the penalties the Titans committed, the pressure the Broncos were able to get on an unsuspecting quarterback, and then just sticking with what they do. Like you mentioned earlier with the running game, like how really they didn't get much until the fourth quarter, but you keep pushing it.
Then suddenly you got a 50-yard run, and then you got a 19-yard touchdown run not long after that. They ground
it out. Exactly. They ground it out and eventually wore down the Titans defense just enough to break through there in the fourth quarter and get the difference they needed in order to win this game.
Well, and also, I think Mims fumbled. It turned over what you thought was going to be a prime position to either get a score, whether that was a field goal or a touchdown. And then they basically pushed him back almost 30 yards because it was it was over midfield. They pushed him back toward midfield and out of field goal range because that pass rush is just so vicious.
Yeah, it is. It's nasty. Looking down the injury report, the Broncos tight end Nate Atkins has an ankle injury. Linebacker Dre Greenlaw, a quad. Defensive end John Franklin Myers with a knee injury did not participate. None of those guys on Wednesday's practice. Tight end Evan Ingram, a calf, was limited. And linebacker Alex Singleton out of Montana State University, a thumb injury, was a full participant in Wednesday's practice. So you look up and down their list, and they have a couple guys who get in on that pass rush in Franklin Myers and Dre Greenlaw who are not practicing. So we'll have to keep tabs on them.
They won't practice till a little bit later our time because they're out in Denver.
But some encouragement on some of those other guys who get a lot of snaps. Jalen Jones is going to be out for the Colts. Mooney Ward to be determined. Tyler Goodson with his elbow. Latu was limited. So Latu's, I think, the biggest question right now about what's going to happen here. Here's the good news, bad news from Latu. Like, you'd never want to see him out, but JT Tuimoloau was inactive in Week 1's game.
Yep.
So the Colts have more defensive line depth that they did not tap in that Week 1. And I made a post about this on Twitter because when the inactive list comes out, your first reaction is, a second-round pick is inactive? You don't see that too often. And that's completely true. Like, most of the time, second-round picks are guys that you expect to come in and have a role right away, if not be a starter right away on your team. But Tuimoloau is behind. Obviously, your first unit is Kwity Paye and Latu. Those are your first-round picks, the guys that are on the defensive line as your starters. Kwity had a pretty good game in Week 1, and like we've said before, his floor is a Jabal Sheard who can be a good run stopper.
It's rarely spectacular, but it's always solid.
Like, exactly. I like his game a lot. And Latu on the other side is the guy you hope becomes the 12-sack guy this season. Those are your starters. And the second line is Tyquan Lewis, who's the veteran backup, who knows where he's supposed to be and knows the scheme and can play inside as well if asked. Having that versatility certainly helps. And then the other guy is Samson Ebukam, who came in and had a sack and was your sack leader 2 years ago when he was healthy. Really encouraging, by the way, to see Ebukam come in and get a sack in his first game back. So, you work literally, as Buckner said today, you work for 2 years, really, to get back because you get injured in the preseason last year. So it's all year long. And it's just like, and before that, it was the whole off season before that you're working to try to get toward that season. And to be rewarded with a sack in game 1 is encouraging for him. And it was kind of Buckner that maybe pushed Tua into it too. Like, he was kind of breaking up the play.
When I looked at it, I initially thought it was Buck that got the sack. Yeah. But then when you look back at it, it was that.
Right. It was for sure. So anyway, all that to say, like, if Latu is out, that's not a good thing. But be cool to see if what Tuimoloau can do, because
Right.
he was
Then
able to flash
you
it in
can
the
bring him up.
preseason.
And I'd read a couple of different things, talking to reporters, talking to Lou Anarumo and the coaching staff, and
Mm-hmm.
essentially they thought that they needed more defensive tackles
Mm-hmm.
against Miami.
Yeah.
So like you had, what is it? Ed Johnson,
Eric Johnson,
Eric
the second.
Johnson,
Yeah,
the second.
that guy.
So kind of like he and Addy kind of were
Yep.
elevated to the active roster as opposed to Tuimoloau.
Yep.
Because that's what they wanted to do that week. And they said that would vary from
Yep.
week to week. And I
That makes a lot of sense.
I believe them
Yep.
when they say that, just based on what we saw from Anarumo and different personnel groupings and using different guys in different situations.
I think Lou can be creative other ways. He can let us in on a little bit. Like, yeah, we were thinking about doing this. He'll fool offenses in other ways than things that he explicitly.
Yeah, but it did make me raise an
us.
eyebrow that Tuimoloau was not in the
Was
not active because he was
understandably
a second round guy.
Exactly, understandably, but again, I think there's at least a logical explanation behind it. It's nothing to be concerned about yet. Wide receiver Alec Pierce, a knee injury. Michael Pittman Jr. with a glute sore booty were full participants on Wednesday in practice then. So that's the injury report for this week. I do want to get to one little piece of drama, Colts drama, before we get into our game information and predictions for this week against the Broncos. But if you were aware, there was a little spat perhaps between Zaire Franklin, Colts linebacker Zaire Franklin, and former Colts tight end Kylen Granson, who is now with the Philadelphia Eagles. Kylen went on social media after the Eagles won in week 1 and said something to the extent of, "Good to taste a victory. First time I've done it in 5 years." And apparently that left Zaire a little sore, even though what Kylen said was completely correct.
Accurate, right?
So Zaire wasn't happy about that, and he's on a podcast. It's not his own podcast anymore, but he's on another podcast, and he said something to the extent of, "Kylen never made any plays," which, to be fair to Zaire, is also kind of accurate.
Also kind of true.
Kylen caught a touchdown here, just one. Famously, he celebrated like a baby.
He took baby pictures.
Right.
It was hilarious.
It was great.
It's great.
And like I was, when Kylen was here, he was a good dude. He didn't work out the way the Colts wanted him to, obviously. But I get the sense that this is not bad blood between Zaire and Kylen. It could be, like, maybe they've run into each other one too many times at practice, and Zaire just doesn't like him.
Doesn't like him.
Entirely possible. I didn't bring it up in the locker room because I don't think it's that important. But it's just something to talk about.
You didn't want to get that stare.
Exactly.
Either,
I didn't care enough, like, to be perfectly honest. So anyway, that, like, I want to fill everyone in that's something that happened. That Zaire is still ready, willing, and able to talk some smack on a podcast, even though it's not his podcast. So we might have to keep an eye out and ear out for what he has to say throughout this season there.
I read about that too. I didn't put it in the rundown, I guess, because
because it's not that big of a deal. It's
trivial.
Really not.
It's trivial, right? But it's also sort of hilarious in a way because, yeah, I mean, Granson's 100% correct.
He's right.
He did not experience a week 1 win when he was here in Indianapolis. Yep. But then also,
Zaire's correct too.
He was also not a dynamic playmaker that the Indianapolis Colts can live without.
Right.
So it kind of goes both ways.
Like and it comes down to, like, do you prefer, if your player, like, if you're a fan of the Colts, do you prefer if he just Zaire just lets it slide? Like, who cares? It's gone. Let's focus on week 2. We don't need to talk about this. But that's not who Zaire is.
That's not
like,
Zaire.
It's just not him. He's going to be a talker. He's going to say things. He is going to mix it up. And he still seems to be a guy who's able to deliver on Sundays. It's not something that distracts him from the job at hand. So, like, I don't think it's anything to raise big eyebrows about. But again, last year, Zaire did get in trouble with a little bit of what he had to say on a podcast.
Sure did.
That was about the New York Giants, saying that, oh, yeah, we'll beat the Giants or whatever. I mean, he said it just seemed like the Giants were a foregone conclusion win. And then that famously did not happen. So I like Zaire staying who he is, but I hope that if you're a Colts fan, you would hope that he has learned where the line is about when to talk and when not to. Because I don't think you want him not to talk, because that's who he is. That gives him the juice to play. But at the same time, and I don't think this one went over the line at all. It's at least something that we know that he's going to continue to do. because that's what he is.
Hey, Zaire always talks, and
Yep.
I mean, I know that you guys have said that, he's one of the more enjoyable guys
Yep.
in the locker room. He always gives you a little bit of something, and then also he's got a little sass is not the right word, but he likes to chat.
Yep.
He likes to talk, likes to run his mouth a little bit, and that's fine because, as you said, that is who Zaire is. That's who he's always been.
It's that
even
orange
when
in him,
even when he
juice.
was the 7th round pick who was playing special teams.
That's right.
Like the jaw.
3-year captain out of Syracuse University. That's right. Coming here to Indianapolis to be a captain here himself. Anyway, game this weekekend. Colts Broncos inside Lucas Oil Stadium.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
boy, somebody
son
didn't
of a
change
gun.
that. Hey, look at that. Change the time. Don't change the opponent.
Sunday
Who
on
made this?
CBS 4.
What idiot put
that
that
jerk
together?
on 4:05 p.m. kickoff. Like just for the record, I hate 4 o'clock kickoffs. I'd much rather have 1 o'clock. But fans, you all enjoy your 4 o'clock kickoff. Have a little bit more time before this game. Nobody cares what I think. I don't even know what the betting line is. I didn't look it up. Matt, did you look it up?
I thought the Colts were like 2.5 point dogs.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But let's see here. 2.5 point favorites. And the total over under is at 43.5. So 43.5 points. So they're projecting something along the lines of a 23-20 ball game, right in that range, is what the experts in Vegas who pave their ceilings with gold for the fools like us who think we know better than them, try to prove that we're better than them. So for this game, I'm definitely more optimistic about the Colts than I was after week 1. No doubt about it. Am I optimistic enough to pick them over the Broncos? And significantly, it seems like a better team, a team that really did struggle itself week 1. I think this is a tough pick, honestly.
It is.
For me.
It is because of the opponents that the Colts and the Broncos had make it difficult to get a full picture of what these teams are.
Right. And I still enter last week. I was confident I was pretty confident in the loss. I was obviously wrong, but at least I thought I had good reasons why they were going to lose. For this one, I think I can think of good reasons for them to win and good reasons for them to lose. So I'm going to be optimistic. Daggone it, Matt. I'm going to pick the Colts here to start off 2-0. And if they start 2-0, then 3-0 is a very real possibility with the Titans next. But we're not thinking about that.
No.
We're not going to get there yet. But I'm going to pick the Colts over the Broncos. I think the home crowd at Lucas Oil helps. It's a whiteout game. If you're going to the game, wear white. The Colts are going to wear all white uniforms themselves.
Haven't they typically done that sort of later in the season?
Typically, yes. But this time it's going to be early in the season with the all whites. I'm going to go with I think that it's still more defensive. And then I'm going to go with the Colts 20-18, a kind of an awkward score here, but 20-18 ball game. The Colts are able to get a victory at Lucas Oil Stadium. They go to 2-0 on the season, and there's nothing but good vibes entering week 3. Matt, what you got this week?
I think they, of course, we said this a couple years ago when they played the Browns. We thought that was going to be a defensive struggle, and they almost
38,
scored 40 points.
Yeah.
I do think the Colts are going to have a hard time putting up 30 points against the Broncos this week. That said, I saw enough from kind of the shifting defense that kind of keeps you off guard and an efficient offense with Daniel Jones kind of making all the right reads. So I'm going to go ahead and ride dimes for one more week here. I'm going to go ahead and take the Colts at home. I think if it had been a road game, maybe I might go Denver, but since it's at home, week 2, build some momentum. I'm going to say the Colts are going to go 2-0 here. I'm going to go with a very similar final score, but I'm going to go 20-17, the more conventional 20-17 final score for the Colts over the Broncos.
I like Jonathan Taylor a bit in this game. I just don't think he's going to be a 3.9 yard per carry this season guy, obviously, because that's not who he is. He's gonna have the chance to break one or two.
And Taylor, came very close to breaking a couple of those runs.
Yep.
And they used him. It was only 3 catches. I get that, but they can use him in the passing game a little bit this year, which I don't think they've done as much.
I like the use of him in the passing game.
And not just they use him in the screen game here and there, but swing passes, check down stuff. And I think he's going to break one of those.
He was respectable in pass pro too. I want to give him credit for that because that's one thing that we've criticized him for in the past.
Fair enough.
He was good, and if for some reason he's more on the same page with Tanner Bortolini and Daniel Jones than he was with Ryan Kelly and Anthony Richardson, then great. That's great for him. If he understands where he's supposed to be better, if he hears the calls, if he hears the cadence, if he understands what those two guys are saying better than what the previous two guys were saying, then fantastic.
And I think
I don't know if that's the deal, but Daniel Jones, like he has a good cadence. Like what Joel Erickson again from the Stars, been working on a story on that.
He had an article about the cadence today, and one thing that I took away from that is that I did not realize that was a problem.
Right.
So much with Anthony Jones because he had such a booming voice, but the line calls were not necessarily clear to his offensive line and his offensive skill players, and Jones has that,
right,
and can vary it up, and then that poses problems for the defense too.
Yep.
So it's a completely different ball game out there.
It is. So again, if Taylor is more on the same page, that's better for him, and it's worse for defenses because he's a talented player, he's a strong guy. So like you figure he has the ability to be a good pass protector. And if he's on the same page, then fantastic. He has more than just the ability. He'll have the stats to back it up as we get further into the season. So that's my thoughts on this game. It's a Jonathan Taylor game. The Colts get the win at home. Matt's taking them too. We'll have to get Chaps online. We'll encourage him to retweet us.
I think he's probably doing some home cooking on that too.
Very much so. I would imagine so. I think so. I think he's kind of been in the camp that 3-0 is very possible for this team. So I would expect
it
Colts
really literally all hinges on the Denver game.
Yep. A lot of it does. If they can start 2-0, then book a playoff.
Especially against this defense. If they can come away with the win, even though it's at home against this defense, that would be signal some good things for
a lot of things to be happy about then. So this is the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. We appreciate you listening. You can download, subscribe, get us delivered to your podcast listening device as soon as it drops every week. Also available on Fox 59 Now, YouTube, plenty of different places to find us. For Matt, I'm Dave. Mike will be back next week. We hope we'll see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone Podcast.